Hi everyone, it's Keren here and welcome back to my channel. I was really excited to see this new product by Holtz, the Distress Oxide Sprays, and I just got them this week. Finally, they came in the mail. Since I live in Canada, it's a little bit longer for me, but I am really excited and I thought I could show you 15 different techniques on how to use Distress Oxide Sprays. Now, I got these tags. These are tags from Joggles. They are watercolor paper tags. They're 140-pound Strathmore watercolor paper. And I'm going to use basically one tag for each technique. I might use two just to show you. And then I'm going to get the discs and bound this. And then I have kind of a reference point for the techniques that I use for the Distress Oxide inks. It can also be a little art journal that I can do with this. So it's really fun and I want to use these for them. So I'm going to line up my sprays over here. And I'm going to start with my first technique. I'm working on my Tonic Studios Holtz mat, which is a glass mat, a tempered glass mat, and I am going to basically put all the cards over here and do all the dirty work over here like Holtz does. Now the nice thing about these Distress Oxide sprays is that obviously they're in spray form, so they're much easier to apply and get coverage. You can do some different techniques with them as well. One of the things you have to do first is shake them, and I'm going to basically shake every single one. There's a little metal ball inside that makes all the oxide and the ink basically mix inside of it. So you want to make sure that you shake them really, really well. And what you also want to do once you use them is that you want to actually clean this nozzle every time. So I'm going to shake these, and then we're going to get started. Now I like working in the center of my mat. It is much easier for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here. I just find it much easier for me. And then I can put my tag right here and work in the middle. I have a hard time working here on the side, and since all of them it's the same technique, it's different. If I had a big project here and I wanted to do something here on the side, that would be okay, but right now I want to work with it here, and since it's clinging to the background, it's perfect. A few things you need with Distress Oxide sprays or inks is to have a water bottle handy with some, so you can spray it, and you also want to have some wipes and paper towels handy. That way you can do various techniques with it. So the first technique is really fun, and I'm going to just pick one color out of here. Let's pick this one, which is the picked raspberry, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray here. Now because it's wet, I want to let this dry a little bit, so I'm going to heat set a little bit. Now for this first technique, I'm just going to be sprinkling some water onto it. And then what I'm going to do, let it react on the page, and then I'm going to take a paper towel and remove some of that wet area. Now this is a really fun technique, and it's one of the original techniques to do because Distress Oxide inks and sprays were made specifically for creating these really cool oxide effects and removing the ink from them. So I'm going to basically remove it off, and I'm going to do a few more sprinkles with it because it didn't quite remove that well. So I'm going to try to make it react a little bit more. So I'm going to add sprinkles onto it and let it sit down. I think there was too much ink on it. Okay, there we go. So now you can see this really cool effect that you get, like a splatter effect, and you can create it really nicely using this. Now you could combine two colors and then remove it, and the possibilities are basically endless. For example, we'll go in the back and I'll show you the same technique using two colors. So for example, I'll take this one, is the Wilted Violet, and I will also do the picked raspberry again. So you're combining two of them. Now, I was wondering what would happen if I actually sprinkled when it's still wet. But I think it will just mix. We'll see. We'll dry it first. So it does kind of give a reaction, but I think because of the ink is so strong, I'm not sure if it will dry up that way. So I'll dry it again. Just gonna dab out some of that excess. So this look, because I added the water first, it actually gave it an oxidized look. If you can see the oxide there, it looks very, very cool. Now let's see what happens when I actually add water now. I think the sprinkling is easier that way. So I'm going to let it react for a few seconds, and then I'm going to dab out the excess. There we go. So you see it works with two colors too, and it looks really, really cool. So that's the first one, just with the one color, and there's the one with two colors. So there we go. I'm going to put this one aside. For my second technique, I am going to use a stencil. This is the Gradient Square Stencil by Tim Holtz. And all I'm going to do is show you that you can spray through the stencil. It is quite easy to do. And all you have to do is just basically place it on. You could also tape it if you want to with some tape. So I could easily go and maybe hold it here if I really wanted to stay properly. Or you could just hold it. I usually just hold it. I don't let it, but just to show you that it can be done, I'm going to do this. And he also has a little sticky grid. Tim Holtz came out with that as well, so that's an easy thing to do as well. So let me show you. I'm going to use the cracked pistachio. And the differences between spraying and applying the ink is that you're going to get that splatter effect. So there we go. We get this one, and let's add a different color at the top just to be different. So there we go. So that's really easy. Just plainly sprayed onto this, and look how pretty that looks. It is super, super gorgeous. Now, you could still do the first technique, which is this one. You could do it on the second thing as well. So you could dry this up and then sprinkle water on it as well. So what I like about this is that they spray beautifully through a stencil. They give a really nice effect, and I like this gradient thing. Now, I don't like wasting, so I just want to show you a quick technique with this as well. So if you see this is left over, I'm going to use the back, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on top and press. And what's going to happen, oops, besides that being wet and just ruining, not ruining, but making this, is that what's going to happen, and I could have done this with a paper towel, is that it's going to create, hopefully, an image on the other side. So that's a really neat technique to do with sprays. It could be done with any sprays, not specifically distressed oxide sprays, but I just thought I could show you that as well. So I'm going to, I hate wasting, so I want to be able to put as much as possible onto this. So there we go. We have the back area as well, and here I smudged it a little bit, but it still looks very, very distressed, which is nice. Now you can clean the stencil as well using either like this paper towel, for example. I can just use it, or a baby wipe, and then you can use these paper towels for your art journaling as well. Another thing is that you could also use the leftover ink that you sprayed on here, and I'll show you later how to do that, but right now I want to get to the next technique. Another great thing about distressed oxide inks and sprays is that they clean really, really easily from anything, from your stencils or from your mat. So they're really fun to use and create amazing results, and then all you have to do is just clean them super, super fast. So I like that as well. Now for the third technique, I'm going to be using a stencil again, but this time it's going to be a little bit of a different technique with the stencil. First, I'm going to spray the background. So for example, let's use a different color. I want to show a color that I could actually see. So let's take the fire brick, or even two colors. I'm going to use the fire brick, and I'm going to use the Spiced Marmalade. So I'm going to use these two colors, which is really fun and really bright. And then I'm going to dry this again. Now you have to make sure it's really dried. That way the technique works better. Now that it's dry, I'm going to place the stencil back on. And I'm going to create a resist onto the background using water. So similar to the other technique, but instead of creating splatters, I'm going to be creating these really nice resist reverse techniques. I'm going to let this sit over here and have it react with the ink. And then I'm going to take my paper towel and soak up everything from that was wet. That's why I said you need to have it dry beforehand, so that way you get that really cool effect. Let me show you now what I mean. There we go. So you got the reverse look of this one, which was another technique, and you can dry this then as well. You can still go with this back of this stencil and press on it as well, but I want to dry it first. Now that it's dry, I can go and press on the back of this to just show you that it does work and it's not ruining the front by doing that. So you create this nice technique. Now, another thing that is important to know is that you can reactivate these with water anytime you want. So let's say the bottom dried on your mat or on the stencil. You can go ahead and reactivate them on the mat, and then you can just use it to smush out the rest. So just know as a tip that you can always reactivate these over and over and over. As long as there's ink, you can reactivate it and create very cool backgrounds with it. So there is another background. I'm just going to let this one dry over here. And this is what I meant. Besides the stencil that can be reactivated, you're also reactivating the background. So I could take easily an extra tag and just run it through here and create a really easy background. So that's easy to do as well with whatever you have left over. So instead of wasting, you can clean up your mat with this as well. So not only, I think there's going to be way more than 15 tips here and techniques, and that's okay as well. For the next one, all you need is again a sprayed background. So you could use this sprayed background that I just used to pick up, or you could use a different one, and I'm going to use a different one just to show you. It's a very cool technique also with a stencil. And let's see, what colors haven't I used? I haven't used this peel paint, so let's use that. And I do like mixing them with other colors as well. I think when it's two colors it looks nicer, but you don't have to do that. You can just use one color. So I'm going to dry this again to show you the technique. This is another fun technique. And again, I'm going to use the same stencil because that's the one I have on hand. But you can use any stencil to create this. Instead of using water to remove from the stencil, I'm actually going to use a wipe. I love having wet wipes or baby wipes on hand. And all you have to do is just gently rub, and you can remove the excess and create a really nice resist technique. You can also use it for blending. As you can see, it's also blending into the background. And now let me show you. It does the same technique as before. Very similar. Let's see. Yeah, it's very, very similar. The only difference here is that here it didn't blend as much, but as I was rubbing it with the wipe, it actually blended everything, which I really like actually. I quite like this technique. So this is a really fun technique to do. And you can just basically have fun with it and try something new. So I'm going to let these dry over here so I can show you the fifth technique. For the fifth technique, I wanted to show you something really cool. I'm going to take a few of the colors. So for example, I'll take this one, which is the Mermaid Lagoon, and also the Cracked Pistachio, and maybe 1/3 color. And I'm actually going to create splatters in the background. Now, you can just count this as two techniques, since you can use it to create splatters. Okay. And then I'm going to create splatters with other colors. Now you can do this just with one color if you want to. You don't have to do it with two. So this is easy to create splatters. It's not something that new that I've discovered. And all these techniques are actually nothing new. Like, it's just things that I like doing and experimenting with them. And then what I want to do is to actually add, while they're still wet, I want to add some clear Ranger embossing powder on it. So I have it here in a container because I've put it in a container. And what is going to happen is going to create, I mean, if you want just matte splatters, then you just do this. But if you want to create these glossy splatters, all you have to do is just add this over the area. You could also, just as I said, add one color, not all colors. And then when you dry it, it's going to dry up glossy. So you can get like a really nice glossy effect. So now I'm going to heat set it. So now what happened is that it actually trapped the color inside. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of glossy. And I could either leave it like this, or I could go ahead and spray it with another color, and it actually sealed that color so it will not interfere with it. So once this is dry, it will resist the yellow. It's only mixing over here on the side because there's no embossing powder on it. But everything else is being resisted. So for example, just to make sure, I'm just going to wipe off the excess. And you can even remove it. So there you go. You can have those two effects with the glossy. Now you could do the same thing, and I'll show you in the back with a stencil, for example. So let's do this. I'm going to spray through the stencil the same way I did before. So for example, let's use this yellow. It's the fossilized amber. And then I could go ahead and use the clear embossing to create a clear layer on this stenciled area, the same way I just did with the splatters. So it's kind of a bunch of techniques in one. I just like showing as many techniques as possible. It might not come perfect because, as you can see, these ones are more distressed in terms of the look of them. It will stick to anywhere that's wet. So there we go. And then all I have to do is just heat set this really well. So once the embossing powder is melted, and you can see that it's shiny, any part that got embossed will resist the rest. Now you see some other splatters, those were from behind because the blue got behind, like the splatters that I did. But you could even splatter the whole tag and then make it glossy by putting powder everywhere. But I don't like doing that. I just like getting pattern with it. So for example, if I went now and added this, you see it's resisting the actual areas where there is pattern, where there is embossing powder. So there you go. So you can create, again, the same similar effect with this. So in this area, it sprayed more. So when I put the embossing powder, it was wet in this whole area. But it actually looks really cool and very distressed. So here we go. We have another tag and another technique that I thought was really cool, which is to have an embossed look to the background by creating a resist technique. For my sixth technique, I thought it would be fun to use embossing powder again, but this time doing the embossing first. So you're not doing the embossing on top of other color like you did here, but I'm actually embossing it with regular embossing ink. So I have this stamp from Holtz as well, And I am going to pick, let's say, this really nice butterfly image. And I'm going to emboss it with distress embossing ink, or any type of ink is good. Now I can put it on this, it's just easier. You can use a stamp block or the stamp platform, but just for this purpose I just want to show you the idea of this. Maybe I should do this. Now I can stamp this and emboss it either with clear or with black or with gold or with basically any color. I'm going to start with clear just to show you how it looks. So it's hard to see, but the image is there. And just to show you the technique, it's very cool. So first let me heat set it. Now before showing you the technique on the cleared embossed area, I want to stamp the other side, just because once I add the ink, it's going to make it a mess on both sides. So I want to make sure that I have both sides embossed. So what I want to show you with this is that you can emboss with any other color. So whatever color you emboss with, that's what's going to show. So I just grabbed another embossing powder. This is a gold one. You could do black, you could do any type of color, and that's what's going to show and what's going to resist the image. So again, I'm going to use the same one just because I have it at hand and I don't feel like getting another one. And I'm going to press here as well. Now I'm going to add the gold. So there's the stamped image. Now you can really see it before it's clear, but I'm going to show you once I heat set it what to do with it. Okay, so once the embossed area is dry and I have the clear one on this side, I'm going to spray and it forms a resist on the background. So for example, I don't know what color should I use now. I haven't used the ice spruce yet. It's like a grayish color. So I want to show you, we can combine either two colors or do just one. And look how pretty that is. So we can use a paper towel again to just wipe off the excess. So that way you get that resist effect. So you get that very cool resist effect. You can still go ahead and sprinkle this if you want. You can stamp on it. I mean, you can do anything you want afterwards. If you spray it on this, if you even splatter on this like I did before, and you go and you splatter on this, it will still create the same effect as before. So everything can be done on all the different techniques can be done on everything. Then on the other side, for example, let's see, what color could I use that will look good with gold? For example, the blue. Let's use this one, the Faded Jeans. And I'll show you. So this is what I mean. It can be done with any color. So you can do this one and maybe add a little bit of the yellow color. So two colors. And that's good. And just to take out the excess, that way you can really see the embossed area. So you see, that's a really neat technique that you can do, and it works really, really nice. This is the one side that is with the clear, so all you see is the bottom. So you could technically do what I did before without a stencil, like in this one where I embossed this area. So you could cover this all with another color. So for example, yellow color, then dry it up, emboss with the ink, and then spray on top. So you could have, instead of a white background, you would have a yellow background and seal it like I did here. So instead of using a stencil, I could use a stamp. So there's so many different ways of doing this. For the next technique, you can use a stamp and the spray together. So for example, and let's take this vintage photo. I'm going to spray the stamp. I will take a little bit of a paper towel just to kind of dab out the excess. And then I'm going to take it and stamp it on the background. So I think it's easier if I put it on the mat and stamp, and you get that very cool distressed look. You can also do it on a previously inked area, and I've done this technique a lot with the inks as well for distressed oxide inks, is that you can create distressed looks on the background. So it's very, very neat, and it works really, really nicely. So I think instead of spraying the stamp, I think it's easier if we just spray the mat. So let's try the butterfly stamp again, but with a different color. So for example, I'll just put a little bit of ink here. I think it's easier to grab it when you can just dip the stamp in it. And the nice thing is that you're going to get that distress look. Let's see. I think the second image always comes out easier when you're doing a ghost image. So this doesn't work as well because it's too much of a perfect image. But I do like the one with the script stamp because that turns out really nice. So there we go. I mean, this is just a nice technique to do, whether to do it on the background or to do it already on an area where you've already added ink. So that's a neat technique, a quick one that you can add some really nice distress to a background. Another neat technique is stamping with an acrylic block. So for example, you could add a few spritches of spray onto this and use this to kind of create distressed images, stamped images. So there we go. And I'm just going to use this to add some more to this other one over here. So you see, you can kind of create a distressed look. Another thing you can use to get that same effect is to get a piece of packaging, clear packaging, and for example, just smush things into it. So, or the opposite way, you just like press on it and you create these really neat effects with it. So that's a cute way of doing something quick. If you want to create that distressed look, that's a really good way of doing it. And then on top of it, you can do the splatters and the stamping and everything else. So that's a quick technique as well. And then the next one is adding a little bit of resist spray. And this one takes a little bit longer to dry. So you need to let it sit and dry, and then you can get that resist effect like the other things. Now I'm not going to spray it. I'm literally going to just sprinkle it because I don't want to make a mess of everything. And I'm going to let this sit like this and let this dry. I let this dry for a little while, and now I'm coming back and I'm going to spray on top, and you can see how the resist spray created a really nice blocked area that the sprays will not go on. So when I spray, you can see that the spray goes on anything, and the areas where I sprayed, it created the resist. Just to show you that it resists it, I am going to just use a little towel or wipe to show you the resist areas. You can also use this with, you can also do this with any resist medium, like any of the pens that resist, that create a resist area. And you can also do it with tape and with many different things. I have lots of different techniques with sprays in general, resist techniques, that you can do not only with these sprays, but with basically any type of spray. Another technique, and I think this is a really fun one, you need a lot of spray, and using your heat tool, you can kind of create waves and moves everything. So for example, let's try the purple color. with the cracked pistachio. And let's add a little bit of the blue as well. So you do want to have a lot of it on. And then you can even add water to make it really watery. And then what's going to happen is that not only is it going to mix, but it's going to create a kind of galaxy effect. I mean, galaxy without the stars, but just a very psychedelic effect. And you can use it to move the ink in many directions. And it looks really, really neat. So it mixes things. You can also use your hands to move things and let things drip. So not only can you use the heat tool, but you can also move it as well. And what's nice about this is that the colors mix so nicely together and they look really, really beautiful together. So you kind of create a new color. I'm mixing 3 colors and I'm creating a brand new color that doesn't exist. So look how pretty it came out. I mean, it is beautiful how all the colors mix together. So it's a really neat technique to use where you're swishing the colors back and forth either with a heat tool or with your hand and go back and forth with it. And it looks really, really nice. One of my favorite techniques to do with distressed oxide inks was to do a kind of smooshing technique on my mat and then mixing all the colors together. This is kind of 2 techniques in one. The first one is to basically spray things on the mat. No, sorry. I'm going to take this spice marmalade and I'm going to add it to the background. Now you don't have to cover it all. You can just add areas where you're covering certain places. Now you can get this really neat example of how smooshing it creates that distressed look. So that's the technique that I want to show you first. But then this you can go with a second technique where you're going to mix the colors as you are you're going to mix the colors and you're going to use different colors to create a really neat effect. And I used to do this with the distressed oxide inks by putting some ink on the mat and then adding water, and that would work. Now you have them in spray form, so you don't even need to, you're kind of saving yourself a step. So I'm going to heat set this first because it works much better when you heat set it and it's when a little bit dry. So then I take the next color and I do the same thing. I kind of smoosh it onto the mat. So the technique is smooshing, but is also combining the colors. And it looks something like this. It's really important to heat set in between each layer. That way you really get the oxidized effect and that distressed look. Then I'm going to use the last color, for example, and you can go as many colors as you want, but I'm just going to show you 3 because it's my favorite combination. And that was the Vintage Photo. And I'm going to, that's going to be the 3rd effect. So there we go. And you can go back and forth with these and do as many colors as you want or as many layers as you want. So I could go back with the orange, for example, and add a little bit more to it as well. And it looks very distressed. Then I could go back with, for example, that other stamp and just create stamped images on it. So for example, I could go with the walnut stain, put a little bit here, and stamp with it. Oops, that did not work. 1 second. So stamp of the script onto it. This is too wet. There we go. So this is a very interesting effect, and you get that distressed look that is so nice that Tim Holtz loves so much. Another very cool technique that you can do is that you can use blending tools for it. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So we can start, for example, with the same blending tools that I use for the inks. And I'm going to spray on my mat. And then I'm going to dip my blending tool into this. And I'm going to blend it onto the background. And look, you get a really smooth effect. Then you could take a different color, for example, the spice marmalade, and do this as well. So it is just beautiful to do that. And look, you even see the two colors, the difference between the two colors. So it is really easy to just blend these together, and it's a very neat technique that you can do and cover a background really quickly. So it gives you actually a much smoother effect than the inks. The inks give you a very light effect, while this one gives you a much darker and very solid effect. So it's very, very interesting, the look that you get with it. So the next technique, of course, if you can blend it regularly, then definitely you can blend it through a stencil. So why not try it? Let's see how it works. I'm sure it looks amazing. Because if you can blend it like this, then you can blend it through a stencil as well. And there we go. Oh, it's a perfect application. So that's another way of doing it. I guess there's many different ways that you can do it. I wonder if it would work with a stamp, for example, where I ink the stamp with the blending tool. I might get a better image that way. There we go. So it does work. Awesome. So I'm kind of applying it on a dry way with the ink. So I'm spraying ink, but it's applied dry, which is really neat. I'm excited because I can use them for blending onto an art journal much easier than having to spray. So you can get full coverage that way as well. For the next technique, I've done it quite a few times, but with the ink. So I want to see what happens when I do it with the spray. And I took two tags because I'm going to do it two different ways using embossing folders. I took these 3D embossing folders, but I think it works with any type of embossing folder. So for the first one, I'm actually going to spray the embossing folder with a couple of colors. And let's pick something else just because I don't want to use the same colors all the time. So this one and this one. Okay. And then this will be for this tag, which I'm going to close soon. And the other one, I'm going to do it with the blending tool, just because I want to see the difference of how it looks. So I'm going to use this color and then maybe a little bit of the orange color. There we go. Now I'm going to close these and I'm going to run them through my Vagabond machine. And after I run them, I want to open them up and see how it turned out. So it's imprinting the image and doing it all at once. So here is one. This is the one was more dried. It still looks very cool. And let's see for the one that was wet. Oh wow. So very cool effect. I've done these with the inks, but I've never done it with the sprays, and it looks amazing. I love it so much. I think I did the wrong side, so oh well, that happens. And obviously I'm going to clean everything. So just for this side that I have over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to spray some of this And then I'm going to just dab it out a little bit so you really see the nice effect of the embossed area. So, I mean, it would have come out differently. These one came out because it was on the opposite side. Same thing here. I can spray these and it turns out so nice. Let's do the yellow. The reason why I'm filling it all in is because I really want to use these after to create a mini art journal album. So I want to just create some nice effects in the background. Another very cool technique is that you can use these sprays as watercolors. So for example, I could create some watercolor paints on my mat and then use a paintbrush to paint with them. So you're kind of creating a paint effect in the background. You could also add a little bit of water with this and make them a little bit more watery. But they do change a little bit because they oxidize. So it really becomes almost like a watercolor effect. So it's another neat technique that you can do. And you can see this is watercolor paper, so it works really, really well. I'm just going to add the leftover to the other side like I did before, just so I can do this later, and just let this dry up. One of the last techniques that I want to do is actually using a gel plate, and I really wanted to test this out and see how it works. I truthfully think that this is not 15 techniques. I think I have more like 20 techniques in here, so I'm going to make this video more like a 20 technique video, but I just want to show you how this will work really cool. So for example, you can first create just a regular background with this by pressing on this, but that you can do with the mat as well, so it's not very innovative per se, but I just want to show you what else can be done with this. So I mean, really easy to create, but I am thinking, what if we add this, okay, through a stencil, or leave that stencil mark. So for example, let's even do it on the same side. Oh, how cool is that? And then I'm going to lift this up, and of course I can still use the stencil area. Let me grab a different one of these, and with this another tag I can lift up the image and create an amazing other tag with this. So you can use the jelly plate as well, which is really cool because you can create amazing images with it as well. Look how cool that one is. Now I'm going to stamp with this still. I wonder if what happens if I actually put, I'm just pressing this here. I'm using this to press. Okay, and now I'm going to use the back of this, and there we go, we get the same effect. Okay, I want to just show you a couple more. The other idea is to obviously use the stencil so you don't waste anything. And I mean, there's not much left, so that's okay as well. Now I wonder if it will work with stamps as well. So let's spray a little bit more. I'm going to clean it. We'll use some yellow and some pink just to be different. And I'm going to try a stamp. This is a foam stamp from Joggles designed by Kerr. And if this works, I'm really going to get excited because I'm going to make a whole video just on this, because I have tried these techniques I have tried them with actual inks, like the Distress Oxide inks, but I never tried them with the sprays. You'll see here, I think I'm going to get a better technique here. Now, first of all, I can really use this to stamp, but I'm going to first use this area to see how it turns out. So the key is not to put a lot on, because I think it just basically smushes on. So I have to put less of it on. So it does work, and you can see the area here, but not so well. So let's see if I stamp with this. Let's try again. Okay, so the image is not coming out as well, but I bet you I can stamp on this. So I can use this to stamp, and that will work perfectly fine. There we go. So the stamp image does work from the mat, and you can stamp with the sprays. I mean, you can spray this and then stamp with it. That's very cool. So that's really, really fun. I think all these techniques are really just something so fun to do. And I'm going to bring all the tags back so you can see all the fun techniques that we did. There's about, I think, 20 techniques, if not more. I just don't remember anymore because I didn't count them all. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to put these all in my disc-bound journal. And then what I'm thinking is for a second video, I'm going to take all these and I'm going to create I'm going to basically finish them up. So I'm going to add a little bit of stamping, a little bit of images, and maybe some sentiments. So it will basically be a finished journal, a finished tag journal, and it'll be fun. I just wanted to really show you all these techniques today, but truthfully, I can take all these tags and create an amazing journal with it as well. And basically finish up all the different ones, because there's a lot of them here that basically just have color but don't have any stamping on them or anything else. So I could add some stenciling on it and things like that. So for example, I am really thinking of using some of the gel press plate and actually adding some stamping onto things. So it will look really, really cool. I also want to show you the discs that you can bind these with. So all you have to do is just basically add these. There's 4 discs that go for each tag. And then all you do is you just basically add all the tags and it will create an album. But since I want to finish these and actually add some stamping and other things, I will keep them out of it. But as you can see, the stamped album could be like this, and you can just basically scroll through it and you'll get a really cute finished art journal tag mini album. So it's so easy to just pop these in, and I'm going to have all of these inside, and then all I'm going to do is just flip through them. I can add really cool images, strings, or anything like that. So stay tuned for my next video where I want to finish this and create a really neat art journaling tag disc bound journal. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends on social media. The more you share, the more it helps me and the more it helps people to learn about these amazing sprays. If you like my video also, please notify yourself by pressing the little bell underneath my name. That way, every time I post a new video or I go live on a stream video, you will be able to join in or see the video. So thank you so much for watching. For more inspiration, subscribe to my channel and visit me on my website. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Bye.